The scariest thing the government can do isn't hiding a secret from you. It's letting you find it, knowing no one will ever believe you were there. I used to be a geological surveyor for a private environmental firm, which is a fancy way of saying I spent weeks alone in America's most forgotten forests, testing soil and water samples for contamination. My name is Ben, and for 7 years, I mapped nothing but trees, rocks, and silence. The money was terrible, but I loved the isolation. I've always preferred the company of coyotes to people. Last October, my boss handed me a paper map of the whole river valley in Washington, with a small red circle drawn so deep in the Olympic National Forest that it wasn't even near a logging trail. He said a satellite had picked up a thermal anomaly in the soil, and they needed a core sample. I asked him who owned the land. He just shrugged and said, "Probably nobody." That should have been my first warning. In the Pacific Northwest, nobody owns nothing. I drove for 6 hours on a paved road, then 3 more on a gravel path that turned into 2 tire tracks over mossy rock. By the time I parked, the sun was already bleeding orange behind the mountains. I grabbed my GPS, my sampling kit, and a heavy flashlight. The forest was too quiet. Not the peaceful quiet in National Park, but the kind where you realize no birds are singing, no insects are buzzing, just a thick, wet silence that feels like a blanket over your ears. I walked for 45 minutes, following a creek that seemed to curve in the wrong direction, bending east when the map said it should go west. That's when I saw the fence. It wasn't a chain-link fence with signs. It was a massive, 10-foot-tall barrier of rusted corrugated steel, tilted at odd angles like the earth had pushed it up from below. Thick vines had swallowed most of it, but I found a gap where a tree had fallen, splitting the metal open like a tin can. On the other side, the ground changed. The soft pine needles turned into hard, cracked asphalt, sprouting stubborn weeds. I stepped through the gap, and my GPS flickered. Then it went black. Dead batteries? I had just changed them that morning. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Not just low signal. No bars, no service, nothing. It was like the entire square mile had been erased from the digital world. I should have turned back. Every instinct told me to turn back. But I saw a building ahead, a low, concrete structure half buried in a hill, with a ventilation pipe sticking out like a periscope. The concrete was stamped with faded letters. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. No unit number. No date. Just those words, worn smooth by decades of rain. I walked closer, and that's when I noticed a sound. A low, constant hum coming from beneath my feet. Not electrical. Mechanical. Like a massive engine running deep underground, vibrating to the soles of my boots and up into my teeth. I found a steel door. It wasn't locked. That was the strangest part. A door that heavy, in a place I'd forgotten, and it opened with a simple push. The air that rushed out smelled like ozone and wet copper, the same smell as a lightning strike. Inside, a narrow hallway sloped downward, lit by dim red emergency lights that never flickered, never failed. The floor was dry. No dust. No cobwebs. Someone cleaned this place. Someone maintained it. I followed the hallway for maybe 200 feet until it opened into a massive room. A control room. Dozens of old-style computer monitors lined a curved wall, all showing static. But the static wasn't random. It pulsed. Patterns emerged and dissolved, like someone was trying to send a message through a broken television. In the center of the room, a single red light blinked on a metal pedestal. Next to it, a mug, a ceramic coffee mug, still warm to the touch. Someone had been here. Not hours ago. Minutes ago. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the red gloom, and that's when I heard it. Not the hum this time. A footstep. Heavy. Boots. Coming from a corridor to my left. Then another. Then a voice, low, calm, and completely devoid of emotion, said 3 words that still wake me up screaming every single night. Visitor. Identify. Now. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat closed up like someone had poured concrete down it. Instead, I did the stupidest thing possible. I ran deeper into the base. Not back toward the exit, but toward the sound, because some broken part of my brain thought if I saw who was speaking, the fear would have a face, and a face I could deal with. The corridor split into 3 directions. No signs. No markings. just identical tunnels disappearing into darkness. I took the middle one, and the moment I stepped inside, the red lights above me changed color. They turned white, blinding, surgical white, like an operating room. The hum grew louder, deeper, until I could feel in my chest, rattle in my ribs. I pressed my hands against the cold walls to steady myself, and that's when I noticed the vibration wasn't random. It had a rhythm, a beat. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. A code, a distress signal, a countdown. The tunnel ended at a steel hatch, the kind you'd see on a submarine, with a heavy wheel in the center. I grabbed it without thinking. It turned easily, smoothly, like it was opened every day. Beyond the hatch was a room that broke my brain. It was a barracks. 40 metal bunk beds lined up in perfect rows, each one made with tight military corners, green blankets, flat pillows, but no one was sleeping here. The beds were empty. However, on each pillow rested a single item, a photograph. I walked to the nearest bed and picked up the picture. It showed a family. Mom, Dad, 2 kids standing in front of a yellow house. The faces were blurred, not by age or damage, but deliberately. Someone had erased their features with a chemical solvent. The next bed had a photograph of a wedding, faces erased. The next, a high school graduation, erased. I dropped the picture and backed away. 40 beds, 40 lives, 40 people whose faces no longer existed. Who were they? What happened to them? The hatch behind me slammed shut, not slowly, not with a creak. It slammed with the force of a car crash, and the wheel spun on its own, locking me inside. I ran to the hatch and pulled. Nothing. I pounded on the steel until my knuckles split, leaving small smears of blood on the cold metal. The lights flickered. Then they changed again. Red to white to a color I've never seen before, a kind of deep violet that made my eyes water and my skin crawl like ants were burrowing under it. I wasn't going to die in that room. Not like that. Not erased like the faces in the photographs. I grabbed one of the metal bed frames and swung it against the nearest wall like a battering ram. Once, twice, 3 times. The concrete cracked, not because I was strong, but because the wall was old, brittle, weakened by decades of damp. On the 4th swing, the frame punched through, opening a jagged hole into a service tunnel barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. I dropped the bed, squeezed myself into the gap, and pulled my body through as the purple light behind me flickered and died. The tunnel sloped upward. I crawled for what felt like an hour, my knees raw, my palms bleeding. The hum now so loud I couldn't hear my own sobbing. The tunnel ended at another hatch, this one smaller, rusted shut. I kicked it, once, twice. On the 3rd kick, it flew open, and cold, fresh air hit my face. I was outside, back in the forest, back under the real sky, with real stars overhead. I crawled out, fell onto the pine needles, and just lay there, gasping, waiting for the voice to come back, for the lights to find me again. But the forest was quiet, too quiet, and when I finally stood up and looked back, the concrete structure was gone. No bunker, no fence, just trees and moss and the sound of a distant creek. I found my way back to my truck by following the creek. My GPS worked again. My phone had full signal. I drove 6 hours home without stopping, without sleeping, without blinking. I told myself I imagined it, a stress reaction, a hallucination from dehydration. I almost believed it, too, until I got home and emptied my backpack. Inside, mixed in with my soil samples, was a photograph. The family, the yellow house, the erased faces, and written on the back, in fresh black ink, were 3 words. We know you. That was 3 months ago. I haven't slept more than 2 hours a night since. I quit my job. I moved to a different state. I changed my phone number, my email, my name. None of it matters, because they're still watching me. I know they are. I see the signs. A car parked across the street that never has the same license plate twice. A utility worker standing by a power pole at 3 a.m. staring at my window. A package delivered to my door with no return address, containing a single item, a military-issued dog tag stamped with my name and a date. Tomorrow's date. Last week, I decided to fight back. I spent every dollar I had on recording equipment, night vision cameras, thermal scanners, a military-grade GPS that's supposed to be immune to interference. I drove back to the Ho River Valley. The same road, the same trail, the same spot where the fence should have been. Nothing, just trees. I hiked in a spiral pattern for 6 miles, covering every inch of that grid. No bunker, no concrete, no rusted steel. I sat down on a fallen log, defeated, and that's when I heard it, not the hum, a whisper, coming from the ground beneath my feet. Multiple voices, layered on top of each other, speaking in unison. Ben, you were not supposed to leave. Return to processing. I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. Branches whipping my face, my lungs on fire. I made it to my truck, threw the gear shift into reverse, and didn't stop driving until I hit the freeway. But here's the thing. When I reviewed my thermal scanner footage later that night, I saw something that confirmed my worst fear. The base didn't disappear. It's still there. It never left. The thermal scan showed a massive, rectangular heat signature the size of a football field, buried 200 feet below the surface. And inside that heat signature, 40 small human-shaped blips, moving, walking, living. The 40 people from the bunk beds, they're still down there. I'm recording this confession because I don't know what else to do. The police won't believe me. The FBI hung up when I mentioned the base. The newspapers won't return my calls. But you need to know the truth. That base is real. It was built in the 1950s for a project that was never decommissioned. I found a partial document online before my search history was remotely wiped. A file labeled Project Sleepwalker. It involved experiments with psychological conditioning, sensory deprivation, and something called identity dissolution. The goal wasn't to create soldiers. It was to erase them. To turn human beings into ghosts that could follow orders without memory, without conscience, without faces. The 40 people in those beds, they were the first successful trials. I was supposed to be number 41. They let me find the base on purpose. It was a test, an open door to see if anyone would walk through it. And I did. I walked right into their trap. The only reason I escaped is because the old infrastructure is failing. Cracks in the walls, broken locks, a system running on decay. But they're fixing it. That hum I heard? It wasn't machinery. It was a repair signal. They're rebuilding, expanding, and when they're done, they won't leave a door unlocked again. I hear a car outside right now. No headlights. Engine idling. It's been there for 20 minutes. My phone just received a text message from my own number. It says, "Processing rescheduled. Please remain calm." I'm not going to remain calm. I'm going to keep running. But I wanted to leave this behind first. If you're watching this, and you ever find yourself in a forest where the birds don't sing and the ground hums beneath your feet, turn around. Walk away. Forget what you saw. Because the scariest thing the government can do isn't hiding a secret from you. It's letting you find it, knowing that now you belong to them. The car door just slammed outside. 3 heavy footsteps on my driveway. Then a knock. Not on the front door. On my bedroom wall. From the inside. The knocking didn't stop. It moved. From the closet wall to the ceiling. From the ceiling to the floor beneath my feet. Whatever was inside the walls wasn't trying to break through. It was circling me, learning the layout of the room. And then I realized the terrible truth. It wasn't outside trying to get in. It had always been inside, waiting for me to come home. I grabbed my backpack, the one with the thermal scanner, the photographs, the dog tag with tomorrow's date, and I ran for the front door. But the floor changed beneath my feet. The hardwood turned soft, spongy, like walking on old foam. I looked down and saw the wood grain was warping, curling upward the edges, revealing a dark, wet substance underneath. Not mud, not water, something organic, something that pulsed. I jumped over a growing patch of it and slammed my shoulder into the front door. It didn't budge. Deadbolt from the outside. Someone had locked me in while I was recording my confession. The knocking stopped. The hum returned. That same deep mechanical vibration from the base, but louder now, shaking the pictures off my walls, rattling the glasses in my kitchen. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my head, and with it came a voice, not over a speaker this time, directly into my thoughts. Clear, calm, the same flat, official tone. Subject 41. Environmental calibration complete. Identity dissolution will commence in 10 minutes. Please remain where you are. I screamed. I screamed until my throat bled. But no neighbors came. No sirens. No help, because there are no neighbors. I checked later. The apartments on either side of mine have been empty for months. Vacant. No furniture. No mail. Just empty rooms with fresh paint and clean carpets, waiting for someone who will never move in. I wasn't going to wait 10 minutes. I ran to my bedroom window. Second floor, 15 feet to the ground. I smashed the glass with my laptop, climbed onto the sill, and jumped. I landed hard on the grass below, my ankle twisting with a sickening pop. I dragged myself across the lawn, through a hole in the fence, and into the alley behind my building. I limped for blocks, miles. I don't know how far. I just knew I couldn't stop. Not because of the pain, but because every time I looked back, my apartment building was still there, lit up like nothing was wrong, and every single window showed the same thing. My silhouette, standing perfectly still, watching me leave. I found an all-night diner on the edge of town, an old place with cracked vinyl booths, and a waitress who didn't ask questions. I sat in the corner, facing the door, and tried to think. The dog tag said tomorrow's date. That meant I had until midnight. Maybe less. I pulled out the photographs from my backpack. The 40 erased faces, the yellow house, the wedding, the graduation. I looked closer this time. The chemical solvent that blurred the faces wasn't random. It followed a pattern. Each face was erased from the outside in, leaving a small, clear circle in the very center of where the eyes should have been, as if the process of erasure started at the edges of the person and worked inward, but never quite finished. That's when I understood. The 40 people weren't dead. They weren't even prisoners anymore. They were the base. Their identities had been dissolved and redistributed into the infrastructure. Their memories, their faces, their names, all broken down and repurposed as the software that ran the lights, the locks, the hum. The whispers I heard coming from underground, that was them. 40 trapped souls, still conscious, still aware, forced to serve as the base's operating system for eternity. And I was next. I needed proof. Real proof that couldn't be erased. I limped out of the diner and found a 24-hour hardware store. I bought a cheap flip phone, no internet, no GPS, nothing to hack, and a disposable camera. Old school film. Then I called an old friend from my surveyor days. Sarah. She was the only person I ever told about the base. Back when I thought it was just a strange story. She didn't believe me then. But she answered at 3 a.m., half asleep, and I told her everything. The 40 beds, the erased faces, the voice in my head. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said 3 words that broke me. I believe you. She's driving now. 6 hours. She'll be here by morning. But morning is 9 hours away, and I have less than 10 minutes before the calibration completes. I left the store and limped back toward my apartment. Not to go inside. To document it. I stood across the street and raised a disposable camera. The building looked normal. Boring. Beige bricks and vinyl siding. But through the camera's viewfinder, something changed. The building wasn't there. Instead, I saw the base. The same rusted steel walls. The same concrete bunker. The same ventilation pipes sticking out of ground. The camera was showing me what was really there, hidden beneath a layer of perception that everyone else accepted as reality. I took picture after picture, the flash illuminating the night, until the film ran out. Then the lights in my apartment went out. Every window went black at the same time. Not like someone flipped a switch. Like someone pulled the building's plug from the earth. The hum stopped. The silence that followed was worse than any sound. Because in that silence, I heard footsteps. Not from the building. From behind me. I turned. The street was empty, but the footprints weren't. fresh impressions in the dew on the sidewalk, leading from the diner to where I stood. Someone had followed me, someone I couldn't see. I ran again. I'm not proud of that. I've done nothing but run for 3 months. But what else can you do when your enemy is a place? You can't shoot a building. You can't negotiate with a government that doesn't admit you exist. All you can do is run and hope the sun comes up before they find you. I'm in a motel now, a cheap one off the highway, paid in cash. The woman at the front desk didn't ask for my ID. She just handed me a key and said, "Room 12. It's already paid for." I didn't ask who paid. I already know. I developed a film in a public bathroom using a drugstore kit. The pictures are drying on the motel's towel rack right now, and they show everything. The base, the fence, the control room with its static monitors, and something else. Something I didn't see when I took the photos. In the background of every image, standing just behind me, is a figure. Tall, wearing a military uniform with no insignia, and its face is exactly where mine should be. The features are wrong, the nose too narrow, the eyes too far apart, but it's me, an incomplete copy, a version of me that's still being built. The dog tag says tomorrow's date, but my phone just changed. The clock skipped forward. It's not 4 a.m. anymore. It's 11:47 p.m. Tomorrow is here. It came early, and the voice is back. Not in my head this time. In the room, coming from the motel's air vent. Subject 41. Identity dissolution is now in progress. Please do not resist. You will not remember the pain. I looked at my hands. My fingertips were blurry, not shaking, blurry, like a photograph starting to fade. The edges of my skin were becoming soft, indistinct, as if someone was erasing me from the outside in. Sarah is still 6 hours away. She won't make it. No one will make it. I'm uploading this footage to every server I can find, every cloud, every forgotten forum. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone will go looking for the base. But if you do, remember this. The base is in place. It's a process, a machine that has been running for 70 years, eating identities, digesting memories, growing larger with every person who stumbles through its unlocked doors. The 40 beds weren't full because 40 people failed. They were full because 40 people succeeded. They became the base. And soon, so will I, the lights in the motel room just turned red, the same deep, bloody red as the corridors underground. The hum is back, vibrating through the mattress, through my bones, through the last few molecules of my name. I can hear the 40 voices now, whispering from the vents, from the walls, from the floor. They're not angry. They're welcoming me. Join us. Subject 41. The work is never finished. The base is never full. I can feel my memories slipping. My mother's face is already gone. My first dog's name is a blank space. My own reflection in the motel mirror is someone else now. Someone generic. Someone without a past. This is my last entry. The camera is dying. My voice is fading. But I need to say this one thing before I go. The base doesn't exist on any map because it doesn't exist in reality. It exists in the space between thoughts, in the blind spot of your memory, in the moment you forget why you walked into a room. It's not hidden in the forest. It's hidden in you. And every time you feel a draft from a door you don't remember opening, or hear a hum from a basement you've never entered, or see a photograph of yourself where your eyes look wrong, that's the base, checking on you, deciding if you're ready. The 40 voices are singing now, a song I almost recognize, a lullaby from a childhood I no longer have. The red light is getting brighter. The walls are getting softer. And somewhere, deep beneath the ground, a new bunk bed has been made. Tight corners, green blanket, flat pillow, and on the pillow, a photograph of a face that never existed. If you hear the hum, don't look for the source. Run, forget, and pray the base doesn't remember you back. I wish it did. I wish I could tell you that the camera hit the floor, the red light swallowed everything, and that was the end of Subject 41. But something went wrong. Something the base didn't expect. And that's why I'm still here. That's why I'm speaking to you now, 3 weeks later, from a new place, a safe place, or at least a place that feels safer now. Here's what happened after the recording stopped. The erasure didn't finish. It got to my fingertips, to the edges of my face, to the corners of my memories. I lost my mother's voice. I lost the smell of rain. I lost the name of the first girl I ever loved. But then the process halted. The red light flickered. The hum stuttered. And the 40 voices stopped singing. Instead, they started screaming. Not in pain, in warning. Something was wrong with the bass. Something was breaking from the inside. I looked at my hands. The blurriness was receding. My fingertips were coming back. Slowly, painfully like frostbite thawing, I stumbled to the motel window and looked outside. The parking lot was empty, but the sky wasn't. Above the tree line, maybe 2 miles east, a column of pale blue light was rising from the ground. No sound, no heat, just light, pulsing in that same rhythm. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. A distress signal. The bass was calling for help. I should have run in the opposite direction. Every sane part of my brain screamed at me to get in a car and drive until the ocean stopped me. But here's the thing about having your identity almost erased. You stop being afraid of death. You've already lost everything that matters. Your memories, your face, your name, what's left to protect. So I did the only thing that made sense. I went back. I drove toward the blue light. 2 miles down a dirt road I'd never seen before, even though I'd driven this highway 100 times. The road ended at a chain-link gate. No signs, no warnings, just a padlock that fell apart when I touched it. The metal crusted with rust that looked decades old but felt warm, like it had just stopped glowing. I walked through the gate and into the forest. The blue light was everywhere now, filtering through the trees like underwater sunlight, and the ground beneath my feet wasn't dirt anymore. It was asphalt, cracked, weeds pushing through. The same asphalt from the first night. The fence appeared first. The same rusted steel barrier, but this time it was broken, not by a fallen tree, by an explosion. The metal was curled outward, torn like paper, and beyond the gap, the concrete bunker was visible, but it wasn't buried anymore. The earth around it had collapsed, forming a crater 50 feet wide. The bunker was rising, slowly, like something was pushing it up from below. I climbed over the twisted metal and walked to the edge of the crater. The blue light was coming from a crack in the bunker's roof, a crack that was widening as I watched. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, ready to run, ready to fight. But it wasn't a soldier. It was a woman, wearing a tattered green uniform, no insignia, no rank. Her face was blurry, not like mine had been, but permanently, as if someone had started erasing her decades ago and never finished. She looked at me with eyes that weren't quite where eyes should be, and she spoke, not with her mouth, with my memory. She pulled a word from somewhere I'd forgotten I had. Benjamin. My full name, a name I hadn't heard since my grandmother died, a name the base had already taken from me. But she gave it back. She was one of them, one of the 40. But she wasn't trapped anymore. The collapse had freed her. Partially, she pointed at the rising bunker and then at her own chest. Then she made a gesture I'll never forget. She pressed her palms together, then pulled them apart, stretching an invisible thread between her hands. She was showing me what the base did. It took identities and stretched them thin, spread them across the infrastructure like butter on too much bread. But when the infrastructure breaks, the identity snaps back. It reforms. It remembers. She grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were cold, not human cold, machine cold, but her grip was gentle. She pulled me toward the bunker, toward the crack in its roof. I resisted for a second, then stopped because I understood. The base wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to digest me, and now it was choking. The 40 identities it had consumed over 70 years were fighting back. They were tearing it apart from the inside, and they needed one more identity to tip the balance, one more person to stretch the thread until it snapped. I climbed onto the bunker roof. The concrete was warm, vibrating. The crack was wide enough now for me to see inside, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The control room was gone. The monitors were shattered. The pedestal with the blinking red light was twisted metal, but the 40 beds were still there, lined up in perfect rows. And in each bed lay a body, not skeletons, not mummies, perfectly preserved human bodies, dressed in identical gray uniforms, their eyes open, their chests rising and falling. They were alive. They had never stopped being alive. The base had kept them that way for 70 years, using their minds as processors, their memories as fuel. The woman who had guided me there climbed onto the roof beside me. She pointed at the bodies. Then she pointed at me. Then she made the gesture again, palms together, pull apart. But this time, she didn't let go. She kept her hands separated, trembling. The invisible thread stretched to its limit. She wanted me to jump, to land among the 40 beds, to add my body to their number, but not to be consumed, to overload the system. 41 identities stretched across an infrastructure built for 40. The thread would snap. The base would break. And everyone, the 40 me, maybe even the base itself, would be free. I looked down at the bodies. Their open eyes were moving now, watching me, waiting. Their lips were twitching, forming words I couldn't hear. And then I recognized one of them. The face wasn't erased. It was clear, perfect. It was the face from the wedding photograph. The groom, he was young, maybe 25, frozen in time. And he was crying, silent tears running down his temples into his gray pillow. He knew what I had to decide. He had made the same choice 70 years ago. He had jumped, and he had been trapped ever since. I stepped back from the crack. The woman grabbed my arm tighter, her machine-cold fingers digging into my skin. She wasn't angry. She was afraid. If I didn't jump, the base would repair itself. The crack would close. The blue light would fade, and she would go back to being a whisper in the walls, a processor in a hum, a ghost in the machine, forever. I looked at her blurry face, at the 40 pairs of eyes watching me from below, at my own hands, still slightly transparent at the fingertips, still healing from the erasure, and I made a choice. I jumped. The fall was longer than it should have been. The blue light swallowed me. The hum became a roar, became a scream, became silence. I landed on a bed, not an empty bed, an occupied one. The body beneath me was warm, alive. Its eyes met mine, and then its eyes closed, and its chest stopped rising. One of the 40, the oldest one, a man who had been down here since 1954. His identity snapped back into his body, fully restored, and the shock of it stopped his heart. He died with a smile on his face, free at last. Then the others started moving, sitting up, blinking, crying, reaching for each other. The woman from the roof was suddenly beside me, her face no longer blurry. She was beautiful, young, terrified. She opened her mouth and spoke for the first time in 7 decades. Her voice was a whisper, cracked and dry, but it was real. Thank you. The base groaned around us. The walls cracked. The ceiling split. Dirt and roots began to pour through the gaps. The infrastructure was collapsing. We had to run. I don't remember the escape. I remember hands pulling me, voices crying, sunlight burning my eyes. And then I was lying in the forest on a bed of pine needles, surrounded by 40 strangers in gray uniforms, all of us gasping, all of us alive. The bunker was gone. The crater was filled with dirt and roots and fallen trees, as if the base had never existed. But the blue light was still there, fading, rising into the sky like smoke. The last breath of a machine that had fed on souls for 70 years. We walked out of the forest together, 41 of us. The youngest was 19. The oldest was 93, carried on a stretcher of branches and jackets. We found a highway, a truck stop, a phone. The police came, then the FBI, then men in black suits with no names and no answers. They took the 40 away. I never saw most of them again. They were given new identities, new lives, new faces. Erased legally this time, but gently, protected, hidden from the base that might still exist somewhere else. They let me go. I don't know why. Maybe because I was never officially one of them. Maybe because I was the one who broke the machine. Maybe because they were afraid of what I'd seen. But they made me promise. Never talk about the base. Never go back to the forest. Never try to find the other locations. Because there are other locations. The man in the black suit said it casually, like he was telling me the weather. You found one. There are 12. We only know where 9 are. 12 bases. 12 underground prisons. 12 sets of 40 beds. 480 souls. Stretched thin across the infrastructure of a secret that officially doesn't exist. I broke my promise. I'm telling you this now because the blue light came back last night. Not in the forest. In my new apartment. In a city 500 miles from a whole river valley. I woke up at 3 a.m. and the light was seeping through my curtains. Pulsing. 1, 2, 3, pause. Not a distress signal this time. A greeting. A different base. One of the 3 they don't know about. It found me. Not because I'm special. Because I'm already part of the system. I jumped into the base. I landed on a bed. I touched the infrastructure with my bare skin. I'm marked now, and the other bases can smell me. The woman, the one whose face cleared when the base broke. She's with me. She has no name, no family, no home. She's been living in my spare room for 3 weeks, learning how to use a microwave, how to laugh, how to cry. Last night, when the blue light appeared, she grabbed my hand and whispered something I can't forget. They're not trying to capture you. They're trying to recruit you. You broke one base. They want you to break the others. You're their weapon now. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll go back into the forest. I don't know if I'll find the other 11 bases, or if they'll find me first. But I know one thing for certain. The base I found in the whole river valley, the one that officially doesn't exist, it's still running. Not daily. Constantly. It never stopped. It just changed locations. And right now, as I'm recording this final confession, the blue light is getting brighter. The hum is getting louder. And the woman beside me is smiling. Not with fear. With purpose. She points at the door. Time to go to work. The base doesn't exist. But neither do we anymore. And that's exactly why we're the only ones who can stop it. Asterisk if you hear the hum. Don't run. Listen. It might be calling for help. And you might be the only one who can answer.